So, good morning. Housekeeping things. Today is September 11th, and when I was a kid, I had to hear about JFK and the situation that surrounded John F. Kennedy, his assassination. And I'm sure those living in the early 1900s had to hear about Abraham Lincoln being assassinated. And so when I was a kid, I just remember thinking to myself, wow, that must have been a major impact on their life when they were growing up. And I remember where I was on September 11th, and I will certainly turn the floor over to Ms. Thompson here in a bit. I would have been working at Nationwide Arena. I rode into work at about 8:50. No, it was 9:50. And it took me about 40 minutes to get to work, and I listened to music that I was writing and recording at the time, so I wasn't listening to the news. And so when I got to work, we had TV screens on, and they had shown the North Tower, which had been hit at 8:46. They had shown the South Tower that had been hit at 9:03, and no video footage had come across of the Pentagon that had been hit at 9:37. However, the plumes of smoke were going from the North and South Towers at around 9:45, 9:50 when I showed up to work. And so by 10 o'clock, the South Tower had fallen. Shortly thereafter, 10:07, Flight 93 had hit Shanksville, PA. And then by 10:30, the North Tower had fallen. And for those, if we have an 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., we actually went to Shanksville, PA the last time, so 2 years ago. And it was very solemn. And so it was a nice dedication. So today is September 11th. Ms. Thompson, do you remember where you were for 9/11?
Yeah, I was in New Jersey. So I was about an hour outside of the city. My dad was in the city that day working. My dad worked for Con Ed, which is the power plant in New York. They always are trained that they are a primary target, because if you're going to attack a city, one of the first things you do is you get rid of the power.
Yep.
So they immediately went on lockdown. We couldn't get a hold of my dad. He got one email out to let us know he was okay, but he didn't come home for about a week because they had to go into lockdown and stay and run the plant. And nobody knew what was going on. I remember I was teaching 5th grade, and my friend was one of our security guards at school, and she came out to my classroom, and she's like, "You're not going to believe this. We were having coffee in the office, and we were watching the news, and a plane had hit the building." And I said, "Yeah, you know what?" And that has happened before in New York City, but like small prop planes. In fact, it had just happened, I think, a year or so before that. So at first I was like, "Yeah, that I've seen that happen before. Hopefully everybody's okay." And then she's like, "No, you don't understand. As we're watching the news, another plane comes in." So then what happened was, because so many of our students' parents worked in the city, and so many of our teachers' spouses worked in the city.
Yes.
We had to try to find out from the kids whose parents worked in the city without letting them know what was going on, because we wanted to make sure that parents would be home for their kids. I'm getting goosebumps all over.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
It was rough. It was really rough. Kids were parents were coming in, pulling their kids out of school because nobody knew what was going on. We're trying to not let the kids know because we didn't want them to get upset. Finally, got the kids on the buses at dismissal, got them home. Then they brought us back into the library where they had the news on. I was not aware at that point that the towers had fallen, because everything was so crazy, and they had us in blackout where no TVs on or anything in front of the TV. And so here's this big TV screen in the library. As I walk in, the news is replaying the towers falling. And I mean, I grew up, my parents are from New York. I spent every weekend in New York City. I've seen those towers so many times in my life. It's like, as we're driving into the city every time, it's like, okay, there are the towers. And to see something like that collapse on TV, that I just had been such a part of my life all the time, it was devastating. And I actually had one of my students, he came in the next day, and he was trying to tell me, he's like, Miss Thompson, he goes, I didn't get my homework done last night. We were waiting for my dad to come home from the city, and his dad came home at like 10 o'clock at night, covered in dust.
Oh.
And this poor kid's trying to say, why he didn't do his homework. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, that's the least of our concerns.
Oh, man.
But where our school was, we were surrounded basically by McGuire Air Force Base, Naval Station Earl, Fort Dix. So at that point, planes were constantly going over.
Yes.
For weeks. And it was really unnerving for the students, for the teachers, because every time a plane went over, you tensed.
Yeah.
You were waiting. And so, I remember it was.
How far is the naval base from you in Maryland? I would assume that's not a hop, skip, and a jump, but.
No, but Naval Base Earl is like in the next town from where I was.
Gotcha. I meant the actual United States Naval Academy. Sorry, I meant Naval Academy.
Maryland was about 4 hours away.
Yeah, I could see that. Yep.
5 if somebody else's.
Incredible. And you mentioned that young boy's, that young student's parent coming home covered in ash. That's one of the memories that is codified in my brain. As my dad was a firefighter, I remember seeing those. It's not only the firefighters, it's the police too, and it was even some civilians just doing their part to help, and they were just covered in that ash. And most of them, and I would say most of them, I can't verify that, but it seemed like they had zero regard for their own life, and they realized that there was a situation that was bigger than them, and they just acted on instinct. And it was, look, we gotta save these people, we gotta help these people. So those videos are always very difficult, and I'm sure I'll watch them tonight. And they're always tricky because you see people, videotapes or whatever they're taping, video cameras are taping, and it's nothing like today when we have phones everywhere. But there were some phones around, there were some cameras around, and when everybody's
cameras in New York City.
What's that?
There's always cameras
Yeah.
in New York City. There's always filming going on.
Yes, good point. And so when everybody's standing around and they're trying to look and assess the situation, and then the towers start falling, it's one of those deals where it's so surreal. It's like, oh my goodness. And growing up with CGI, you almost forget, no, this is real life. This is actually happening right now. So, very difficult. So, and I do plan to tonight. Oh, I'm sure they're going to broadcast. I guarantee it. It is my conviction, it is my belief, it is my thought that not every September 11th we replay and walk through these things and make it some type of a national day of remembrance. However, Tuesday, September 11th, anytime September 11th falls on a Tuesday, we run it back like. We remember it like that. So, granted, you lose that. You would lose the idea of a 3-day or even a 4-day weekend, but something should be remembered specifically for Tuesday, September 11th. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just a teacher at Licking Heights, man.
Well, you mentioned Flight 93 also.
Oh yeah.
I drove out there, I think the year after it happened, and they had just started plans for Memorial. So it was really just the field at that point. And even that was just, you talk about it being so solemn and moving. Just the field, it was emotionally
pretty intense.
So overwhelming.
Well, and it's weird. It really is just an open field, and it's still that today. But they have a memorial on the side. But it's kind of cool in that there's like this walkway ramp that just keeps going, and it's probably, I don't know, a quarter of a mile. And so you keep walking out, and then it just stops. But then it overlooks the field that the plane actually slid into. So it's kind of crazy. And if we do go back to DC, I'm pretty sure that's our return trip home. We stop there, but that's 10 minutes. We got everybody in class, and I appreciate your perspective on that. So living in New Jersey, you're very close, and you're just an hour across. So that's kind of cool. Today I had I think I had 3 or 4 office hour visits through Zoom about this assignment, and I had multiple, and I'm talking dozens of questions about this particular assignment, and I'm okay with that. And all we're going to do is walk through. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to do my best to provide and I know this is going to sound crazy, provide what I believe to be the answer. And I say that because we found out yesterday when I went in to look at what the correct answer, because I took this as well, and I know for a fact I was getting it right. I know for a fact my answer was correct, and it was still marking it wrong. So I was able to go into the system and look to see what they had as the answer, and what they had as the answer was incorrect. So
Also some misspellings in there.
yep. Place was missing an L. The actually number 4 from yesterday, they had omitted the word called. So if you put in the word called, it was wrong. So that was one. Another piece to the puzzle. One of my students from 3rd period forgot the last period mark, which is a fail in punctuation. I get that, but I don't think she should miss the answer because she missed that. But the computer marks it wrong. They just mark it wrong. So, and if you failed, which she did in number 6, to put a space between the parentheses the parentheses and the next, or the word before it, it marked it wrong. So little things like that, if it wasn't absolutely perfect, it wouldn't have been correct. So we're going to go over these. Yeah, go ahead. What's that?
I say this is not a typing test, so like you said, those kind of things, that's not what we're looking for.
Right on. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. And, oh, buddy, what do you see? Do you see...
The answers.
Okay, good. Well, I don't have the answer yet. I'm going to type it in, actually. So I've never done it from this before. This is kind of crazy. Oh, man, this is crazy. All right, so let me try to hide thumbnail, show small active speaker. I'll show that active speaker. Okay, cool. That'll be you. And then, so what I'm trying to do is I'm also trying to record as I type, or as I show the end answer. So here we go. It says doctors partly formed the ACS. Now, if you're typing this as the typer, as the writer, you have to be thinking as the reader. So the reader might ask the question, well, what does ACS stand for? Well, that is why we use parentheses in this case. So you would write something to, well, not something to the effect, you would actually type partly formed the ACS, and then in parentheses, you would state that ACS stands for American Cancer Society. Now, it's very important that we do this. We, in parentheses, and put the period. I can't think of a time that somebody had failed to end the parentheses. So just know that if you put 1 at the start, you're going to put 1 at the end. So that should be the answer for number 3. And as I go on to number 4, I'm going to, I'll wait till I get to number 7, and then I'll talk about that. Type the following sentence and add parentheses or brackets where needed. Use exact spelling and correct spacing. All that was there. Now, this was a tricky one. Now, as you see, there are already a set of parentheses. Just like in math, if there's already a set of parentheses, we have to go to the next step. So, we've got some chats. Oh, yeah. Good job. Thank you. Yes, this is what we went over. This is what we did yesterday. So now I'll let you know, I'll be honest with you. I have no clue what M. thyri is or who that is. Obviously, it's a doctor, or he or she is a doctor, but I should be able to answer this question. So with that in mind, it's the idea that M. thyri and this person from Paris. Now, Paris is what is called the City of Light. So we would then go to brackets and say, brackets mark. There we go. Called the City of Lights. And now we also have to end the bracket, and the parentheses now is a doctor. So what you're doing is you are communicating that this person M. Thyre, and you're going to use parentheses to state that that person is from Paris, and then you're going to comment that Paris is called the City of Lights, all to get to the point that that person is a doctor. That seems like a very long-winded way to state M. Thyre is a doctor, but it's adding information. And when you become the writer, you want to add as much as possible, but not become overbearing. In my eyes, this is a little overbearing. But here we go. Number 5. Here we go at number 5. Many people ask the question, can I add words or can I change words? And the answer is no in this case, because what we want you to do is add parentheses or brackets in order to make this make sense. So if I were just to read this sentence, my membership is my greatest honor. Or I'm sorry, the inductee said, my membership is the greatest honor. You would have no clue. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't hit my ear in any way, shape, or form. So what we have to do is we have to recognize what is being said. We have to recognize a lot. Number 1, we have to recognize the writer is writing what the inductee said. So when we look at the quotation marks, we recognize that something is being said. So therefore, the inductee said, and we put a comma, and then we put quotation marks, start quotation marks, and then the writer states it. Do you know what it refers to? Because I don't. If they left it just as it is my greatest honor, you would have no clue what it is. Is it receiving a banana? Is it eating an apple? What is it? And so the writer who is writing what the inductee said is going to give us, the reader, information that is going to help make sense of it all. So it refers to, this should be brackets, excuse me. Brackets, my membership, close bracket, is my greatest honor. Exclamation point, excuse me, in quotation mark. So now we as the reader understand that the inductee did not say my membership. The writer is the one who gave us that context. And if you go back to yesterday's lesson, the context for the quote that said, it said Oregon was renamed or talked about, and it said Columbia River. And so if you go back you would see that. And those brackets are what give us context. In this case, it refers to my membership. My membership is the context, so therefore they put it in the brackets. Now, I also mentioned that 2 people in this class said, listen, I'm close to this, I'm getting this, but it keeps marking it wrong. There was something wrong with the spacing, I do believe, in the answer for this one. So I think it said my membership, and it had no space between membership bracket is. So if you typed it correctly, you would have gotten it wrong because the key made the mistake. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look through those. I can override the percentage that you received. And if I see it, then good to go. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, aren't you giving us the answers? In a way, yes, but most of them I saw that were already turned in. It was like, man, I don't understand why this is wrong. And that's why we're doing this today. Type the following sentence and add parentheses or brackets where needed. So the first game to be held in the gym is against our school, which seems like a normal sentence, okay? That almost seems like a normal sentence. However, I'm going to add something that might make even more sense. The first game, and that first game is to be held in the gym, is against our school. So what they call parenthetically stated, in parentheses, we've stated to be held in the gym. We're stating where that first game is going to be played. The first game is against our school, is the overall sentence. But what the writer is trying to communicate is the first game to be held in the gym is against our school. So that is what you need to understand. And I'm going to now try to show these answers on here. So doctors partly formed the ACS, parentheses, American Cancer Society. We are referring to what ACS stands for. And we also have M. Thyre, and we quoted that, or we noted that from Paris, and then we said Paris is called the City of Lights, in bracket, in parentheses, is a doctor. Next up, it was the inductee said, comma, parentheses, or a quotation mark, it, and it is, my membership is what it is referring to, is my greatest honor. And then the next one says the first game, parentheses, to be held in the gym, parentheses, is against our school. So now that I've shown you those answers, I'm going to come back. And now listen, this was the craziest thing. So just an FYI here, Ms. Thompson, if you ever get to do a Zoom session in your office hours, these answers, the questions are jumbled and the answers are jumbled. So I had a student talking to me about this problem, and she kept saying that the first answer was what she thought it was. And I said, well, no, it's not the first answer, and here's why. And she goes, well, that's not what my answer says. Well, we jumbled the answers. So no two activities are the exact same. Yeah, that's right. So no two activities are the same. Therefore, it's a little difficult just to pass along your answers. So this is going to be kind of tricky because your answers as students might not add up, might not line up like mine do. But here's what I want you to recognize. These ellipses right here, this one and this one, or even this one and this one, they stand for something. They mean something. And ultimately what they are showing is that although this quote right here is almost exactly the same as this quote, they've taken things out from this top quote and replaced them with ellipses. So there you go. So one day, comma, and then it just says ... I happened to overhear two minors talking about a great school for colored people, and I'm reading number 3 here, ... This was the first time I had ever heard anything about any kind of school or college, ... This is the correct answer. Do not mark number 3 as your answer. Don't do it, because it might not be your correct answer. Your correct answer might be the first one, but it should look like this, and here is why. And this is what we were trying to communicate. It says one day, ... That ... that ellipses goes back to while at work in a coal mine. We don't need that information right now. Then it said, I happened to overhear two minors talking about a great school for colored people. And then it stops and puts the ... there. We don't need to know somewhere in Virginia. That's not our main emphasis for right now when we're talking about Booker T's comments. So the next section is, this was the first time I'd ever heard anything about a school, kind of school or college. And then it gives more ellipses. These ellipses account for that was more pretentious than a little colored school in our town. So in this case, this would be the correct answer, not number 3, but this writing style, because those ellipses are in relation to something that has been taken out. And the young lady that I was working with in my Zoom session, she wanted to know what the difference was between, in my case, I'm sharing my screen, number 3 and 4. And if you'll notice, the difference between number 3 and 4 is only that at the very end, there's no ellipses for number 4. But you have to put that in there if you're the typer, because there is something more to that quote, and you have to show that. You have to show that. So ultimately, that is what that assignment was sort of about. And so now I'm going to come back to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to come back to it.